Well, good evening. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this community forum. This is another in a series of forums that's given us the opportunity as a community to come together, to learn, to be better prepared to take advantages that our community is given, and to be better prepared as well to deal with challenges that certainly will exist. It's a great opportunity to come together and have a conversation, and that's the goal tonight. This forum will follow a very similar pattern to what those have in the past. We'll hear from each one of our presenters to begin this evening, and then we'll take time to be able to respond to questions. If there's a question you'd like to be able to ask, we'd ask you, for the sake of efficiency and to get as many questions as we can, to simply submit it in the back. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the evening, and then any question that's not addressed during the opening remarks, we'll do our best to be able to get to. I also want to be respectful of your time tonight. We will wrap this forum up by 7:30, if not before, just simply wanting to be, again, respectful of your time and the investment that you're making to be here this evening. So at this time, let me introduce the presenters who will be sharing with us to start tonight, providing an update from their perspective. First of all, we have the administrator of the Richland School District, Steve Board. Seated next to Steve Board as we come down the table, from the right is Mike Hardy. Mike is the director of the Simons Recreation Complex. Very pleased to have Bruce Raisler with us tonight. Bruce is new on this panel, but certainly not new to the discussions with those who are involved in our community in those capacities that you see sitting in front. But as the CEO of the Richland Hospital, we're pleased to have Bruce here tonight to be able to share and provide information. Representing the City of Richland Center is Mayor Todd Coppernall. And representing Richland County, we have the chair of the Richland County Board, Dave Turk, and Richland County's administrator, Tricia Clements. So to all of you, thank you for taking time to be here this evening. And to all of you, thank you as well for spending time here tonight to become informed. So with that, we'll begin with our opening, our presentations, and we're going to begin tonight with Steve Board. Steve?
Thanks, Ron. Before we get started here, I just want to make sure that we don't forget to thank Mr. Ron Fruit for helping MC. Much for being here. If we could give him a round of applause. I would appreciate it. With that, I would echo what Mr. Fruit just said about thanking you for being here. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a lot of false information floating around the internet from time to time, and it's usually because people don't take the time and make the commitment to get the right information. And you folks are here in the room tonight to get the information firsthand from a group of people and have the opportunity to ask questions if you've still got lingering questions after we're done here. So I thank you for being here. On behalf of the school district, this is my 4th year starting the school year as the district administrator. And I'm going to break my little segment into 4 topics here. The first is about partnerships. The Richland School District is really, really proud of working so closely with the other folks here at the table. We've worked very closely with the City of Richland Center a few years ago in establishing our Community Resource Officer program. Working with Chief Jones and the City Administrator and the Mayor and the City Council to have a Community Resource Officer in our schools makes our schools much more safe. It makes our schools a place where students and staff have a connection with the law enforcement. So often there are families and children where their only interaction with law is negative. And so by having someone right there in our schools that can work with students in a positive way, it's just been wonderful. We're also currently working with the city on Hive Drive. The school district owned Hive Drive for several years leading up to the high school. That was transferred over to the city, and we're working closely with the city and trying to get a sidewalk and lights going up Hive Drive to be able to connect the sidewalk from Highway 14 at the intersection all the way up to the high school property. I think that's a great win if that can come to fruition. We've also worked very closely with the county as it relates to the MOU that we have for our gym space and our fields next to the high school. We had a shortage of gym space, and so having that MOU in place and having a place for our students to be able to go and practice after school activities and have the space adjacent to the gymnasium available as well is a tremendous win. We're also working very closely with Simons on trying to get all of our third graders to get some swimming lessons. Yet this this school year. And that's a collaboration that would not happen if we wouldn't have the connections and the partnerships that we all have up here. So I thank everyone up here, and I think that those are some really good partnerships that we've got going on. Moving over towards the referendum. Okay, so in 2024, the community passed a couple of referendums specifically related to the capital improvements. You may have noticed that down at Primary, the building formerly known as Doudna Primary School, has had a lot of construction going on this past summer, and I know that that's an inconvenience for anyone who lives in that neighborhood. Our sincerest apologies if there's any disruption, but that short-term pain, we believe will have our building set up for some long-term gain for the next couple of decades. So with that, we did a lot of parking lot work and exterior work, new bus loops, new parent pickups. That seems to be going very well. Air conditioning was installed last week. It's a good week. This week's going to be warm, so for them to have some climate control in those classrooms is outstanding. There's 4 kindergarten classrooms that, if you remember, they were sinking. In fact, the walls were literally 8 to 12 inches pulled away from the rafters, okay? And so that was part of what we needed to fix. And so those 4 classrooms were demolished, removed, dug down 12 feet, replaced bad soil with good soil, built the foundation back up. That was scheduled to be done somewhere. We had a little bit of a setback here right before school started. There was an accident. Trusses that were being set fell and collapsed. Fortunately, just so fortunate that no one got seriously injured with that, but it did set us back a couple of weeks. So we're aiming a little bit more towards the first part of December or into the Christmas break to be able to move those kindergarten classrooms back into the newly developed classrooms. At the intermediate school, the majority of the work that is getting done there will happen next summer. There is some work that happened this summer as it related to just some infrastructure during this school year. They're going to be working on remodeling the restrooms. They've added a restroom down on the south end of the building near the gymnasium. And then once that is fully up and running, which should be around November 1st, then they will be able to systematically and strategically shut down other restrooms throughout the building, one at a time, to be able to renovate those. So by the time the school year is over, we're hoping to have all of the restrooms completed. But the vast majority of the things that are happening at the intermediate school will happen next summer. Fencing around the playground is happening this week, actually. And then at the air conditioning will be coming next summer as well at the intermediate school. High school, some upgrades to our auditorium. We're working out a timeline for that right now. That's a very specific skill set, and so we're hoping to try to get some of the work done during the school year, working around not only the concerts and events that our school district has, but also the events that our community is used to having in our auditorium. We want to make sure that we can accommodate as many or all of them if possible. So we're working with the contractors to try to get as much of that done in between performances. And then again, the exterior and a lot of the restrooms will be done at the high school next summer. And then finally, not necessarily referendum specific, but concession stand. We had the fire at the concession stand at the high school last February. There were some delays early on, but we're moving along, making good progress. We're optimistic that this Friday for homecoming that we'll have a concession stand. Not everything may be operable for Friday, but we're confident that we're going to be able to have concessions on the inside for that. Nextly, I'd like to move over to some enrollment issues. When I was hired as the district administrator 4 years ago, and I stood up here as we were asking the community to consider a referendum, I had mentioned really the elephant in the room, and that's that we have an enrollment issue in the Richland School District. We had close to 270 students that lived in the Richland School District choosing other schools as their school of choice. Okay, 270 students that lived in our community that were choosing other schools. And so that was something that we were trying to address, trying to figure out. We were also coupled that with declining enrollment. We had large class sizes in our then 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, over 100 kids in each class, and then every class below that had 80 or less, okay? And so a very significant cliff. And so we've been trying to address both of these things. And we've done that by adding some alternative education options through our school district. These are unofficial numbers. We just had our official third Friday count in September, and so all school districts around the state are frantically trying to get all of their numbers reconciled. As of this afternoon, when you take our graduating class from 2025, okay, and you replace it with our 4K classroom, okay, our 4K grades, we were going to be down 45 students. If everybody in our district just stayed where they were at, we were going to decline 45 students by graduating 45 students more than we were bringing in 4K. Our enrollment numbers on the third Friday count are plus 25 over 24-25's number, which is a 70 student swing. 70 students that we were able to get back this school year. Our open enrollment out last year was 251. 251 students choosing school elsewhere, 216. That's 35 students that we were able to live in our school district that we were able to get back to our school districts. That's about $200,000 of revenue, just to kind of put that in perspective. We have a long way to go. 200 students choosing school elsewhere is still a significant issue and something that we're very cognizant of, but we are trending in the right direction. I'm excited to announce that. We have about 120 students doing school in an alternative fashion of some sort. We've kind of become a school of choices, okay? In an effort to be the school of choice, we've become a school of choices. We've revamped our online schooling. We've got an alternative school off campus. We've got our partner school. We've got some alternative programming inside. And I think the vast majority of the swing that we're seeing is because we've been able to think outside the box and have students coming into these alternative options. So I think that's a great thing. We do still have some challenges, no doubt about it. We still have this open enrollment out problem. Again, 200 students that are living in our community that are choosing school elsewhere. We still have a declining enrollment problem, as most schools in the western part of the state are. Our biggest classes right now are juniors and seniors, and then it's pretty stable from there on out, but we want to make sure that we're not declining or that we can minimize that as much as possible. We're fortunate that we've got the MOU with the gym, but we are going to continue to work with the county on that. And then lastly, I need to remind people that when the operating referendum was passed in 2024, that was a 4-year commitment, okay? And so that 4 years was an opportunity for the school district to gain the trust from the community. It was $2.3 million in the first year, $100,000 additional each year after that. That goes away at the end of the 27-28 school year. And so you need to know that we will be needing to come back to the community and reassess where we're at and to ask the community again to consider supporting that. But it won't be on top of, it will be in replace of. So I think that's important to know. But we've been off to a great school year this year. We've got a great culture being built. We've got great staff. We've got great options that we've got, and I thank the community for that. And I'll close with just two dates that I want to make sure that you're aware of. One, our annual meeting is coming up on Monday, October 20th. That's at 6:30 at the high school IMC. We generally average about 12 people, so it would be great if we had a few more than that. That's the annual meeting. And then secondly, the board has recently committed to undergoing a strategic planning session with our community starting in January. And so I want you to be aware, and I would encourage you to participate in that planning. We are a public school, which means we need to represent what our public wants. And what our public wants might be different than what our neighboring public wants for their schools. So we need to know what the Richland School District and the stakeholders that live in the Richland School District, what they want from their public school. And so we'll be going through a series of strategic planning sessions after the first of the year. I would highly encourage everyone to come and bring other people involved so that we can make sure that we get true representation of what our public is looking for from our community and our stakeholders so that we can do the best to represent that. So with that, thank you again for being here, and I'll pass it on to Mr. Hardy.
director of Simon's Recreation Complex, so I'm here representing the complex as well as the Simon's Recreation Complex Foundation. First of all, I guess echoing what Steve said, we've really appreciated and benefited from partnering with everyone here up in this table and in the community. We've obviously done a lot of stuff with the school district and continue to do a lot of programming with the school district. We work with a lot of the doctors and healthcare professionals at the hospital as far as getting referrals for patients that are going through rehabilitation. We obviously, we're a partner with the city and the county, as the city and the county both share in the responsibilities of overseeing Simon's as a complex. So we benefited from all of that. A few updates that we have, updates on membership. So obviously, I think last time when I was here, I had mentioned how memberships have risen. We are back up to pre-COVID numbers, so we've been able to erase all of the losses that we've had during and after COVID, as well as the loss of the UW campus. So at one time, we were having about 200, 250 of our members were students or professors at the UW. So once the UW went away, all of those students went away, and that was automatically a loss of about 200 to 250 members. We are back up to about 1,700 members during the summer and about 2,300 members during the winter months. That's about a 20% increase where we were at from 2023. A lot of that is due to a lot of improvements we were able to make in the facility, and a lot of that was due to we received almost $100,000 in donations from the Simon's Recreation Complex Foundation over the last year and a half. So that's been a big part in replacing a lot of our equipment, doing a lot of facility upgrades, minor things there, and they continue to work with us on a lot of the funding, and that helps us out so that the city and the county taxpayers don't have to do a lot of the upgrades that are needed. We're about a 40-year-old facility, and as you can imagine, there are a lot of needs out there for continued upgrades. I guess mentioning the donations that the foundation have done, they're in the middle of their capital campaign, a letter writing campaign. There are some letters in the back that kind of talk a little bit about that and give an opportunity. So they've had letters out for about 2 weeks now, and they've raised just under $20,000, and they've got a matching donor that will match up to $25,000 of those donations. So we're at about $40,000 now that the foundation has raised for Simon's just in 2 weeks, and we're right in the middle of that campaign. So we do thank those of you that have given so far, members as well as business owners, and we have had some non-members that have donated as well. Steve had mentioned update a little bit on the use of the gym. We are sharing that with the school district. That's going very, very well. That's actually a very good use of a facility that was sitting empty. Helps them out a lot. Obviously, they needed the space with their sports and their activities, especially after school. We're going to be getting into, we haven't really started anything yet, but in October, we're going to be starting with some open gyms and some programming in the gymnasium as well. In fact, we'll have an open house at the end of October. It'll be an opportunity for the community to come to see the gym, walk through the gym, see some of the programs that we'll be starting later and in the winter. We'll also be starting some pickleball in there and some open gym basketball and some walking and that type of thing. We do have a new city-county natatorium agreement. The original agreement was drafted in 1987, and we've been living under that agreement since 1987, so there really haven't been any updates since then. But a lot has happened since '87, obviously. Now we have a city administrator, a county administrator, everything's being run differently, so Attorney Wendell was able to make some updates with the natatorium's input on that, and the city and the county came back with some input as well. And we did just get that signed just last month, so we'd have a new agreement that the city and the county will continue to share that the responsibility for Simon's for another year. That gives us an opportunity in 2026. We do have an innovation study. The city was able to get an innovation grant through the state for $62,000. That's going to allow us to bring in a professional contractor to come in and to look at how we're being managed, how we're managing the facility, where some other opportunities we may have. So they'll look at some other, about 5 different management structures that we'll be able to consider. For those that are members or for those that come to Simon's, you probably won't notice much of a difference. whether we're run by this group or that group or however we're run. Programming really probably won't change at all, but it's just going to be something that's going to help sustain us for the upcoming years with some of the budget challenges that might be out there. Our goals are obviously to minimize and reduce the amount of tax levy that's being used to support Simons, and instead replace that with other funding sources, grants and donations and other more efficient sources of revenues. The tennis courts, some of the upgrades that we're going to be making to the facility. So the tennis courts, the old UW tennis courts that are in pretty poor shape out there, we are working on getting those replaced in 2026, where right now the plan is to remove those, and we'll be replacing pretty much the exact footprint that's there right now. The plan right now is to replace 1 tennis court and 6 pickleball courts and a basketball court in the space that's there right now. So we are looking at grant funding for that as well. That won't be any tax levy money either, but that will be something that we open for the entire community. It's not just for Simons members, but that's something that will be continuing on as a use. The trails, again, was something that the county also had given Simons to manage, and those will be continuing for community use as well. We did receive a grant for making improvements to those trails, so we'll be making improvements in 2026 for the trails as far as signage, seating, and just some better use of the trail, which is now the Marty Brewer Nature Trails. Some other grants that we're looking at, Steve had mentioned the 3rd grade swim lessons. We did receive a grant to fully fund the free swim lessons and transportation to and from the intermediate school for this year. So we're working with Steve and his staff on getting those scheduled. So that'll be they can use that as part of their curriculum. But again, that's going to be allowing every child in the Richland School District free swim lessons, and then it's during the school day and free transportation, so parents don't have to worry about how to get the kids there and to pay for it or anything like that. We also extended this because we did receive a little more in the grant than we thought. So we extended it to St. Mary's and Eagle. St. Mary's has agreed they've got three grade levels of 3rd grade, 18 kids that they're going to be sending over, so we'll be giving them free lessons as well. And we haven't heard back from Eagle, but we've done some work with Ithaca and their summer school program, so we may extend the program to Ithaca as well and some other schools in the county, depending what we have. And we're hoping to be able to sustain this program and allow free swim lessons for 3rd graders in the future as well. Another possible grant that I just heard back from a foundation is for free memberships for low-income middle school students of the Richland School District. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Steve about this yet, but this is an opportunity that we're looking at getting more kids involved in fitness and things outside of their phone, things outside of their Nintendo or whatever, getting them more involved in fitness activities. So I did talk to a foundation and possibly have found funding for that. We're a finalist for that. We'll know about that in a few weeks. But that would give free memberships at Simons to low-income 7th and 8th graders in the Richland School District. Other than that, that's about all I've got right now. There are a lot of exciting things that we're looking for. We do have several members of our staff here. Kyle Ewing's also here, Assistant Director, and that's a big reason why Simons has seen this improvement. We hear a lot of people appreciative of the staff that we've got, the friendly faces we've got, and just the personal feeling that people have. They feel like they're in a very family-oriented facility. So, and that's all because of the staff there and the work that they've done. So thank you for being here, guys.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Bruce Raisler. I'm the administrator of the Richland Hospital and Clinics. And as Ron explained, I'm new to this panel, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to meet with you all and talk about the hospital and what's going on there. The hospital is a nonprofit corporation. We're 501c3, and so what does that mean? Who owns the Richland Hospital, if not the city or the county or something? Well, as a nonprofit, we have a corporation that operates independently, but really its mission and purpose is to serve the greater Richland area, and it's self-perpetuating. So think of it as being analogous to Grace, right? Who does fantastic work, by the way, but who owns Grace? Well, we all do. It's a community board, or Richland United Givers, or any number of fine nonprofits in our area. So on one hand, we're a private organization, but on the other hand, if you know a little bit about healthcare, a lot of healthcare gets funded by taxpayers, by you and me, either with federal dollars or state dollars through the Medicare program or the Medicaid program, most substantially. In fact, roughly 72% of the revenue that it takes to run the Richland Hospital comes either directly or indirectly from government sources. So I feel we kind of belong up here in that regard. Again, we're not a public organization, but we definitely rely on the public tax dollar. And again, our purpose likewise is to serve the community. I just wanted to touch base with you on several topics that people seem to ask me about. One of them is that we have some construction renovation underway this year. We're probably mostly done with it. It really, the genesis of it started, I'd say back in 2018, where the hospital board at that time had commissioned a study of our building, a facility assessment to see what's the strengths and weaknesses of our building and how will it serve us into the future. And the upshot of that study 7 years ago was we've been in that location for closing in on 95 years at that point. In that same location, having modified, renovated, expanded to that building, we think 10 times over that nearly 100 years. And at some point, you have to start over. The building infrastructure, what's behind the walls and under the floor and above the ceiling is no longer serviceable, can't be maintained. So the board back in 2018 started pushing us toward a replacement facility. We took a run at that. You may recall we paused that planning almost 2 years ago now because the construction costs just made it unaffordable. But it's a reality that we'll have to face eventually. I'm not going to talk too much more about that, but it's something that in my professional opinion, will need to be done in our lifetimes to replace the facility. And so the board had prudently purchased some land for that to happen. You're familiar with that aspect of it. When the hospital board made the decision 2 years ago to pause replacement facility planning, we realized we had a problem on our hand. We had been deferring maintenance on our current building for, at that point, roughly 5 years, things that would have ordinarily have been done to keep the building functioning and in good repair. But because we planned to move away from it, we didn't pursue. And now we had a list of deferred maintenance projects. That's what's been, that we've been working on throughout 2025. Roughly $5.5 million worth of projects, and I can't name them all. There are so many. Some of the big ones are replacing our parking lot, which was in very bad shape. We've replaced a lot of windows. We've upgraded our ventilation. We've added air conditioning capacity. We added emergency generator capabilities. We're replacing flooring. And the really wonderful part of it is we got a large federal grant to pay for the bulk of that. Roughly $4.6 million came about a year and a half ago with the support of our federally elected leaders. So roughly 80% of the cost is being borne by that federal grant. and we'll be mopping that up over the next couple months. Another question I do get asked about is things that go on in Washington affect your hospital deeply. What about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it is called, that Congress passed and the President signed into law on July 4th? There's been a lot of media attention to this vis-a-vis rural health care, and the budget provisions were a roughly $900 billion with a B dollar cut to the Medicaid program over a 10-year period, so not all at once, but I will offer Wisconsin, with some quick thinking, got our Republican legislature and our Democratic governor to compromise and come to the middle and realize that if we got the state budget in place, we could mitigate some of those Medicaid cuts, and that is what happened. And you may recall that Governor Evers signing the budget bill at 1:32 in the morning. That was because if the budget were in place, then its provisions would be grandfathered. So hospitals and healthcare organizations in our state aren't going to be harmed as greatly as they could have been had that not quick action not taken place. So we're thankful for that. That said, other provisions in the act will still hold true, that the government is trying to nurture citizens to get private insurance, either through their employer or in other channels, and so it will become more difficult to be a beneficiary of the Medicaid program. And so that is something that all hospitals are concerned about, because hospitals by federal law are obligated to provide emergency care to anybody who has an emergency, who comes to our doors. And so although Medicaid on average pays hospitals only 60% of our cost of that care, it was something, and now we may have those same patients, some of them coming to us without any insurance whatsoever, and so it may be detrimental. So I guess in summary, I would say the act that was signed, there's a lot of things that haven't been specified yet. We don't know exactly, but I'm going to file it under it could have been worse, and we are in good financial shape at the moment. We're in the black, and we're putting together next year's budget, and we hope to be in the black next year as well. Other developments, just more briefly, at the hospital and clinic, we again have hit the jackpot with new doctors coming. Some of you may recall about 3 years ago, we got 3 new family doctors all at once. We have 3 more that are joining our staff. One, Dr. Amy Roberts, just came last month, and these are all family doctors. We have another doctor that we've started talking about, Dr. Dami Adesanya is her name, joining us, we think, in roughly a month or so. So she's in the pipeline. And then we have a third family doctor. Her name is Claire Fletcher, and she is coming from Minnesota in early January. So we are going to have uncharacteristically a lot of great access for primary care. Let me say, again, I saw today a statistic that Wisconsin is expected to be short about 2,500 doctors by 2030. And so there is nationwide a severe shortage of physicians. And so here again, we are on the fortunate side of that circumstance that we have a great team of our existing doctors and new ones coming. We are also, our board made a decision a couple months ago to get into the eye care services business. You will well recall, it was not quite 2 years ago that the Gunderson Health System very abruptly, unexpectedly, closed down their eye care clinic here in Richland Center. And they stopped offering optometry services. They also stopped doing eye surgery at the hospital. And we've been trying to find a solution to that problem for some time, working with other agencies. And now, after this long period of time, we've just decided to do it ourselves. So we are recruiting for an optometrist. We are trying to work out a relationship with an ophthalmologist, a medical doctor who does eye care surgery. And we hope to have that, both of those services up and running early in 2026. And then lastly, we are just in the midst of announcing a new relationship. One of the things I like about my job a great deal is that I've worked in rural hospitals in the upper Midwest here for now 40 years in healthcare administration. And sometimes those hospitals have been part of larger organizations, and sometimes they've been independent. But the Richland Hospital and Clinics is an independent hospital, which means we are governed by this local volunteer board of directors, and they call the shots. They decide what's best for our patients, for our employees, for our organization's future, for our community, and the buck stops here. And we're not beholden to a system that's based in Madison or La Crosse or Detroit or Chattanooga. We run our local hospital for our benefit, and but we're not the only one. There are other independent hospitals in our state, our small size, and we're all feeling challenged. Demographics of Wisconsin are working against us. Medicaid is working against us. Labor shortages are working against us, and so we've just announced that we are part of a new consortium of other independent rural hospitals that we're going to work together to try to leverage the strengths of all of us together while remaining independent. The goal of this new organization called the Wisconsin High Value Network is to strengthen our future by working together. And so we're just getting underway with that organization, and we think good things will come of it. We hope to remain, speaking on behalf of our board, I have a couple board members in the audience. We hope that our hospital remains independent for many years to come, because that's what we think is best to serve our patients. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Todd Copernall, Richland Center City Mayor. Very quickly, for anyone who does not know, City and County Attorney Michael Windle joined us after we started. That's him on the end, in case anyone wonders who else sat up in the front. And also, I would like to point out, I think it's a great thing that we acknowledge Ron Fruit tonight for the great work he does. I also think Mr. Dean Amundson, Mr. Rod Perry should be recognized. Dean actually puts these together, and Rod videos every one of them. Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Rod. Okay, what's new in the city? We'll start with something uplifting and fun, which is our auditorium, which of course is no longer owned by the city. Maybe my favorite piece of recent trivia is related to the downtown auditorium is when Darlo Wentz, who I see here with us tonight, who of course is a former mayor, found out that his former mayoral office is now a men's room. He saw humor in that, and I do too. Tonight I was told, and I knew this, and if any of you attended the the events there over the weekend. So the seats on the main level in the auditorium have been replaced now with better seats if you haven't been in there yet. 407 new seats have been installed down there. Nice cushioned seats, and they re-tiered that floor to put more space between the rows and to make it easier for things like wheelchair access. Just a tremendous amount of work went on down there, and it was volunteer labor, which is so Richland Center. It's just what we do here. And so 407 new seats are in there. The ground floor is re-tiered. I don't have the full list of everyone who volunteered their time and effort, but I do have some of them. Dwayne Welty, Kent Adsit, Dave Roberts, and I will acknowledge the Kitsimble family with their sawmill on Sawmill Road. Donated some lumber, as did the Do It Center, and the Bailey family of Bailey Paint and Decorating discounted the cost of the paint. So when you see any of those folks about town, they did a lot of great work for everybody here. And we've already had the first events down there with some live music, and there will be several new events, additional events announced soon down there at the auditorium. Okay, we're working on a new hotel project you may have heard about. The city heard from 2 hotel chains who specialize in small cities, and they saw live presentations from both. They had the opportunity to visit a hotel from each chain, spend the night. Some of them did that. Ask questions, make a choice. They chose to pursue a Cobblestone Inn, which is a chain that has many hotels around the state in places the size of, say, Mosinee and Marquette, Iowa, places like that. And what's happened is the council chose Cobblestone over Grand Stay as the hotel to pursue. The intent, if it happens, is to have that hotel built on Orange Street, just to the north of the Quick Trip, right across the street from the banquet hall you're sitting in. And the city owns that land, so that's part of why it makes sense, right in the middle of the downtown, to have a hotel and to help make that happen. So what's happening right now is that chain, again, Cobblestone Inn, is pursuing investors that they will need to secure the financing to get it done. They're telling us that's going well. When they get the investment they need, they'll come back to us, and assuming all goes well, the intent is for that to be built next year. They'll never get it, it's begun before the frost this year at this point, but to do that next year, and they are working on their investor group right now. Okay, what's taking most of our time at City Hall right now is actually preparing the city budget for 2026. It's that time of the year. I know the county just went through this. How fun was that, Dave?
Lots of fun.
Wonderful fun. Okay, so it's the city's turn right now, as it is every year. So what everybody needs to know, and it's apparent, and I don't blame you, when we're not an elected official, I wouldn't know what I know either, is how much stress, people do not realize how much stress city, county, school district, township, village, municipal budgets are under. It's tremendous. And there are 2 main culprits. The first one is a lovely little state law called Act 10. Any educators in the room want to address that? Senator Schultz, anything to say about that? One of the things it did was to decimate education as a career choice in the state of Wisconsin. I don't think anyone involved would deny that. Didn't end it, but it certainly altered it. The other thing that it did is it capped revenues for cities, counties, schools very tightly. And so what's happened is levy limits have been frozen, we're at 14 or 15 years now, with very small increases available to the municipality. And we all know how hot inflation got, right, for several years. For the first time in 40 years, inflation ran red hot for an extended period. And what that's done is the combination of Act 10 and what it does to your ability to fund your municipality, and inflation that no one needs educated on because you're dealing with it in your household too, is that expenses have now overrun the budgets. And that's everywhere. I heard them say in Madison they're $31 million short right now. That's not apples to apples. Their budget's completely different than ours. My point is simply this. When you hear the Mauston School District, that's not a village on a hill. That's a county seat by the interstate, saying that if their last referendum hadn't passed, they would have disbanded the school district. Think that over for a second. That's tragic, and it's true. Mauston schools nearly went away. Prairie du Chien, 23 cuts. from their school district. 8 faculty positions, no more cheerleading, no more gymnastics. Why is that? They're down about 250 students from 20 years ago in the district. That's going on all over. I spent a day with Viroqua's mayor this summer. He and I have gotten to know each other very well, and you know, his community's had some wins. They got some new businesses in. They've got some homes under construction they hadn't been getting. And all he wanted to tell me about is how frightened he is. Because of their aging population, because of the lack of babies, because of how few kids are in the school district, because of the declining tax base and the projections that show that'll only increase as time goes by, because the average age in Vernon County, like everywhere else, when the birth rate goes down where it's gone, and people just age, the numbers get scary. The future demographic projections get scary. So all Justin wanted to tell me is how concerned he was, which I think a lot of people that don't live in Viroqua might not have guessed would be true, but it is. So where are we in the city? Well, through a lot of hard work, we stayed ahead of the mess for a long time. You see the referendums all over the place. Reedsburg, Baraboo, they've done referendums. They've gotten rid of some things people didn't want to lose. Every school district you can name, right? Referendums, we know all of that. Madison did one. No, I think Wanakee passed a $170 million referendum. Can you imagine trying anything like Rachel Schultz? What would happen? Oh my God. Yeah, okay, but this is what's been going on because everybody's going through the same challenges. Okay, so what I want you to know is that the root issue that has put your city, your county, your school district, your township, your village under tremendous financial pressure. The root problem is at the state level. And that's because they're not reacting to it. So they passed this law 14, 15 years ago before all this inflation. So you go pay your bills with a little bit more than 15 years ago money after all of this happened to the cost of everything. That's where we're all at. So then you look at your budget and you say, the state mandates things like police, fire, ambulance, all makes sense. Streets, right, makes sense. Government should provide those things. But in this conversation, those are things that can't be cut from the budget. They shouldn't be, but the point is you can't. So when cost of police, fire, ambulance, streets went up like everything else as much as it did, it now takes up most of your tax money, if not all of it. So what do? You run a referendum and ask people to voluntarily raise their taxes, which makes you very popular. Or you start cutting things that you're allowed to cut. And which things are those? They're the things nobody wants to lose. They're things like parks, county fairs, county forests, things like that. I didn't say anybody's going to cut those things. I said the choices are really stark and they're here. They're not out there, they're here now. So every entity that represents you, that you're paying property taxes to support, is going through the same process. Neighboring cities have been borrowing money to fix their streets for years and years. You borrow a 5-year plan, you do a 3-year project, and do 2 years without a project. And you start over, and you never get off the wheel. So I recently talked to State Representative Tony Kurtz, who most of you realize is a Republican. And I actually have an in-person on Thursday with Senator Sarah Kieski, who most of you realize is a Democrat. And I got right into this. What we're all dealing with, it's not like they don't know. And where the issue lies, which is where the state has stayed, while the costs have overrun the small places in the state. And a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 by now, Mr. Kurtz and I had a breakfast here in town. And he said that actually they were working on maybe coming up in the state budget with a 0.5 cent sales tax for cities, because right now that's not allowed. So counties have a 0.5% if that county passes that. They were given the ability to do it. They don't have to. Most counties did it. We can't do that. Projections are that if the city of Richland Center had a half a cent sales tax, so you spend $100, costs you 50 cents. A half a cent sales tax would generate about $500,000 for the city of Richland Center. The amount of pressure that would take off is just crazy, but we can't do that. So Tony and I were on the phone the other day and I said, what happened to that? You guys were working on that. He was very honest with me. He said the current Republican leadership in Madison will never let it happen. He said because anything that even sounds like a tax increase scares them. They're afraid that voters will hold it against them and vote against them. And I said, well, what we talked about wasn't the state enacting it. We talked about the state allowing it so that each city could decide for itself. And he said, forget it. And he told me that he tried to add to this last state budget, the one they just passed that will take effect in January, a 5-cent increase in the gas tax because it hadn't been raised in 20 years. And what he tried to do is put that in the state budget and earmark it for roads. It has to be used for road upkeep to help the small places. Because if you think of it this way, whatever, let's just say $300,000, whatever the numbers, that came into the county and the city earmarked for roads. So that money would have to be for roads, but money that's currently in our budgets we've been using for roads could be freed up for whatever else we need to do. But they wouldn't pass it. So what they've got for us in Act 10 is this phrase called net new construction. If you haven't written that down and you have a pen, I'm going to say that one more time. It's called net new construction, and I hope you write it down, because it's the only other real remedy we've got. And what it says, basically, is you can't just raise taxes without a referendum. All right. To get more money in your general fund for your city or your county, you get new buildings, houses, commercial, and the tax they generate, the property tax, they generate goes into your general fund as new money. Okay? So, we're in Richland Center, the only city in Richland County, the smallest county in this part of the state. If you look at a county map, a state map with the counties on it, take a second here, look at the landmass of Grant, Iowa, Sauk County, and look what they drew for us. Seriously, in the 19th century, have you ever looked at it? So, Muscadet is not in our county because it's on the other side of a river, which makes sense to me. It does. Use the river as a natural border. So tell me this, why is Spring Green in Sauk County? Anybody notice where the river is on the other side? It is, isn't it? What the heck? Hey, Richland County residents, this should make you very angry. They did that in the 19th century, and if you didn't look at a map, look at it now and call somebody and go, what did you do that for? I mean, because look where we are. They gave us one city. It's 5,100 people in one county. What are we, 17,000? Where are we? 17,000. You know, Wanakee has more people than our county does? How many roads do we have to take care of compared to that village? Which, by the way, Wanakee's still a village because it was incorporated as that before somebody gave them an interstate. But think about that. One municipality down there has as many people as this whole county, but we have the expenses of a county. Right? Wow. Okay. So how much new construction do you think we're going to get out here just organically? We didn't get the interstate. We are not Madison or La Crosse. We are not really a suburb of either one. We are exactly halfway between them in the hills. So that net new construction thing, it's like they were messing with us. If you think about that, we have to go get everything that gets built there. We have to lobby for it and fight for it. So there's 3 new homes under construction in Richland Center right now, which is like the most we've had at one time in forever. And it's 3. I'm in my 6th year as mayor. I can think of 10 new homes, which is a dramatic uptick from where it was in the 5 years before that. And it's 10. And that was really hard to get because 33%, almost 34% of the acreage in our city has been labeled as floodplain by FEMA. Which means you can't build there. It's a challenge, right? Forget the floodplain, which we can't, but set that over there. To You know you can't get water pressure to the top of these hills? And what are we surrounded by? Steep hills, right? You can't build up there. And you don't want them to. We don't want to lose our wooded hillsides. That's what we are in our beautiful place. So where do you build? And everybody said, the mayor, it's so easy where you build. Build over there. That's floodplain. I didn't know that. Build over there. That guy won't sell his land. We've asked 5 times. Build over there. Do you know, and I'll be nice, do you know there's a landowner here in the community, not in the building, that asked for $1 million for 4 acres of land? Do you know that? $250,000 an acre for 4 acres. What are you going to do with that? Who's going to sign up? Right. So tell me again how easy it is to find places to build, because we've only been doing this for years, trying to figure it out. It doesn't work like that. If it was that easy, it would already be built, because we know what we need and we've been trying to get it built. It's very difficult here. So you build where you can, because you have to, because the law says you have to. Because if you don't build new things, you don't get new money. Through the law they passed with the phrase net new construction, nobody here is responsible for that. Tell your representatives at the state to get on the stick, to wake up to what they're doing to rural parts of their own state, because they're strangling us, all of us. How's the county doing, Dave?
Talk about that.
Yeah. I know what you said to me on the phone. I know how the city's doing. We stayed ahead of the mess because we worked really hard to stay ahead of the mess, and we passed property tax increases that didn't even match inflation, and we're there now. Do you know, to not cut anything from the city budget right now, under this net new construction mess, we need $40 million in new property in a year. Forget it. Do you think we're gonna get 5 new Walmarts next year? Or 6? There's been 1. If I have your attention now, that's because I did it on purpose, to make sure you know what we're all dealing with. And when I say we, I mean everybody you can see up here right now, because we have been for years. It just reached that point where I have to say it as directly as I can, because we gotta get your attention, guys. You're going to have to tell your city, your county, your schools, mostly your city and your county, what you want them to be, what you want them to provide. Because everything you've known them to provide is under assault by state law mixed with inflation. So everything that's been provided will not be provided. Some things can't be provided because cuts have to be made. You're going to hear things like hiring freeze, the city, very possible. Open positions just stay open, it's the way it is. We have 300 acres of parkland, recreational land in the city. Did you know that? Do you know the National Park Service says a city our size should have 50 acres? We have 6 times what the National Park Service says we should be providing. 6 times. So no, we can't afford to add a park. I'm really sorry. I didn't say I don't want to. We cannot do that. I walked into the park shop down there across from the aquatic center next to the senior center this summer, just checking it out, being the mayor, looking around. I see 14 weed trimmers on the wall, hanging up there. Jason Glassbrenner, Director of Public Works, comes out of his office there and he says, geez, why did we ever buy 14 weed trimmers? We only have 8 people using them. I thought that was odd. Like, who spent that money? And then I went back to my office at City Hall. Mr. Scott Gall, who's in the back, who's the utility manager, came in my office, and I said, I was just down talking to Jason. We got 14 weed trimmers hanging on the wall. We only got 8 people. He said, we have 14 weed trimmers because we used to have 14 people. Uh-oh. Used to be a lot easier to hire kids for the summer, you know why? Used to be a lot more kids, right? He just talked to you about the schools. It's because there's a lot fewer babies, it has been for a generation. We bought 14 weed trimmers for 14 people. We don't have 14 people to use them now. So where are we? We're right here. And we have, as a community, we have to decide who we are and what we want. Because I'm not talking about adding a park. I'm literally telling you to keep the ones we have. We got to change the way we're doing this, because the money isn't going to exist in the city budget to do it unless you tell me that we can build $40 million in new stuff in a year. So somebody's going to ask me, if not everybody, something about Story Field tonight. Yep. How did we get there? Did we start there? No, we did not. We tried to talk to different farmers, couldn't do that. We tried to build houses on a hill behind the campus. People didn't like it at the time. I'm not so sure they wouldn't like it now. We'll talk about that too. Okay. Can't do that, can't get that, can't do that, can't do that. Talked to the school district. This is when Jared was here, it wasn't Steve. And I said, well, among many other things, what are you guys doing with Story Field? Nothing, we don't want it anymore. So the city took it. At the same time, we made High Drive a street, which Steve talked about, so we could make some improvements out there. With the intent of maybe getting some homes built on Story Field, because literally every place else we went, we got shot down. It wasn't anybody's first choice. And we hired Veerbicker Engineering in Reedsburg, very reputable firm, to go up there and look at that property and tell us what was possible, what was not, you know, what can that neighborhood handle, all of this. They did. City Council Plan Commission all approved this plan. We had 2 open houses for the neighborhood. We showed them the plan at the time. Builders, we could not find a builder. The ones we talked to wanted about $1 million to do the project. It's just not there. So we just put it down. I really did not think Story Field would come up again while I'm still mayor, which is until April. And then it did. Because one of the builders we talked to then called me. And he said, if the city still has Story Field, we're interested. My buddy's the investor and we want to talk about it. So I did my job, which was to tell the council that, because I have to do that. And here we are reviewing that. So think about all the rhetoric and the back and forth and should we or shouldn't we, and all the struggles of trying to get that done, if it even happens, which is yet to be determined. That would produce an estimate. We won't know until the buildings are built, if they get built, and then get assessed, but estimate around $5 million in assessed value. And I'm telling you, we need $40 million to not cut anything from the current budget. So not only do we need Story Field, we need 8 of them. Thank you for listening to me tonight. It's not all bad. There's a lot of good stuff going on, but I'm not doing my job. I'm not doing what any of you elected me to do if I don't sit here and look right at you and tell you what's going on, and that's what's going on. And it's been going on at your county for a long time. They've been borrowing money and paying the bills and doing it again for years. We haven't had to do that. We might have to do that. So don't run away and hide. The sky didn't fall. There's nowhere to run that's safe in the state because they're all going through it too. So you either go to a city where you can't afford to live, or you stay out here and you figure out what you can do to help, because we can figure this out. But we have to figure this out, and we have to do it right now. All right? Thanks for listening to me.
I'm Dave Turk. I'm the chair of the Richland County Board, and to build on what the mayor was talking about, budget difficulties are nothing new for the county. 4 or 5 years ago, we were in a position where our fund balance, the amount of money we have in the bank, by a county ordinance, I believe it is, we said that we need to keep 3 months there, 25% of our annual budget. And we were below that. Last several years, we have underspent our budgets. We've gotten it built back up. Our auditor is pleased. I just talked to him this morning, so that's good news. What's not such great news is what we're looking at for this year's budget, and especially next year's budget. For this year's budget, we got our final number from the state of Wisconsin. As the mayor alluded to, the state has a rigid cap on what we're allowed to raise for operational costs through the property tax. And if you ever want to have fun, corner me sometime, we'll talk about operational levy versus debt levy. I'll have that conversation with you all day long. Anyway, the amount that we are allowed to raise for our 2026 budget from operational property tax levy actually went down this coming year. It happened a couple years ago too. It didn't go down huge, it's like $20-some thousand, but it went down. Nothing else we do as far as costs has gone down. Everything else has gone up. And so when the mayor talks about just being able to maintain what we're doing and trying to find money to do that, the county's very much in the same boat. We are looking at, for our 2026 budget, because we have been responsible for a few years, we do have a little cushion there, and we're going to tap about $250,000 of that to balance our budget for 2026 to buy us a year to figure out the longer term solution. That's not something we can do every year. That's not something we can do again. So the responsibility is on the county to, okay, sit down, let's talk about what is it we can do with less, because less is what we have. It's not going to be fun. We have been, for the most part of the county, able to avoid layoffs for many years. Maybe that will have to change. We don't know yet. But the numbers for 2027 aren't looking good. Our wonderful legislators a couple years ago did some tinkering with state shared revenue, which gave us a little shot in the arm, which kind of put things off for about 2 or 3 years. This is about the point we were at 3 years ago, getting towards these very difficult decisions. They threw some more money at us. That helped. But it just kind of put things off because they didn't fix the structure of it. They just gave us a little more money. In theory, it's supposed to go up every year based on sales tax collections or something like that, and our shared revenue did go up a little bit this year, just a little bit more than what our allowed property tax levy went down. So it's pretty close to a wash. That doesn't get us anything new. That doesn't give anybody a raise. That doesn't pay increased health insurance premiums. That just keeps the line pretty straight. And so we have to figure out how to do those things. People deserve raises for doing good work. They need to be able to live, and certainly living hasn't got cheaper. Employees need good health insurance, and that hasn't gotten cheaper. It's never gotten cheaper. The only way we've been able to control costs is by making the employees pay more of it. And that doesn't help them in the long run. So we can only do so much of that. We are facing some very difficult choices as well. There are certain things a county is statutorily obligated to do, and there are some other things we do that the law doesn't say we have to do. When we have to start considering what are we going to cut, well, there are the things we have to do, can't cut those. What does that leave? And like the mayor said, that leaves stuff people want. It's unfortunate. It's going to be very, very difficult to do. Our county board next year is going to have some very, very difficult decisions to make, so talk to us. Let us know what's a priority for you. Let us know if you have ideas of things that we can do. You know, we've tried to look at other revenue streams that we can access. We do the dance every year of short-term borrowing, where we borrow a little over $1 million and then pay it right back 3 months later, because we can put that on the property tax. So the state law says we can do that. So we're able to pay for some roads. We're able to pay for capital things. There's a list of things you can use that borrowed money for. Salaries, insurance, stuff like that is not on that list. And it would be irresponsible to dig yourself a hole to pay for ongoing expenses anyway. So we look at what can we do capital-wise, and we come up with a plan every year. We're borrowing just over $1 million. Neighboring counties are borrowing $4 and $5 million a year. And again, paying it back right away, but then they get that freedom under the way the state law reads to be able to invest in roadways and invest in building costs. And we have things out there farther. We will need to do something with our courthouse and jail. Our jail is not even close to meeting current standards. If you look at what the even just square footage recommendations and requirements actually from the state of Wisconsin are now, we're nowhere near. We've been grandfathered in, but we're nowhere near. And if we start remodeling what we currently have, we have to bring it up to all the standards. So that becomes very expensive very quickly. So we're contemplating, all right, well, what if we build a new one? If we wanted to build a new courthouse jail complex and house all our county offices, that's north of $90 million, probably $100 million by now. We can't even borrow that much money. We're not legally allowed to borrow that much money. So we've got to figure out, okay, what can we do? What can we do in stages? We're addressing our emergency communication system right now. We borrowed money to do that, probably about 5 years too late. Our sheriff's department was living on a hand-me-down console from La Crosse County when they had replaced theirs we got their old one, and they were living on that for a while. We're finally getting some of those things done. The radio tower project is running a little bit behind schedule. We had an issue with one site that we wound up not being able to use, so we had to go to a different site. But we're hopeful to get that all wrapped up and get it on the air so we can have more reliable emergency communications county-wide. Those beautiful hills the mayor talked about, they block radio signals too. So yeah, it gets fun. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. I'll pass the microphone to our county administrator. She's got updates for you too.
And I am the county administrator. One of the first things I want to give an update about is the campus. We are working with a company out of La Crosse, it's Short, Elliott, and Hendrickson, for a campus redevelopment project. What we're really looking to do is how do we make that to be bringing tax revenue in and make it be sustainable and something for the community. And so that's about a 7 to 9 month project. We're about 2 months in, and there will be community presentations and then opportunity for the community to give input in the future. So please be looking for that. Part of that process, though, will be most likely looking to demolition some of the buildings. We have found that the library and the classroom building would cost more to fix up than to build new. Our consultants, SEH, is also saying the same with the science building. They said to reuse it for anything because it's how it's set up would be would cost too much. And so we are looking to demolish those 3 buildings. That gives us an opportunity, though, for green space, for possible potential future growth for the community. As you may or may not know, talking about the floodplain, up into the buildings is all floodplain. So between Highway 14 and the buildings is all floodplain. The soccer field is in the flood zone, so those are all areas that, though not impossible to build in, would present lots and lots of challenges. So we are hoping to create other green space and allow an opportunity for future development there. We do have 4 current open board vacancies, so if you are interested in being on the board, being part of the fun that we get to go through every day, we would love to have you. We do have the districts on our website, but they are districts 9, 10, 12, and 20. Or if you have questions on that, you can reach out to me and we can give you more information on that. But we would appreciate more people coming and joining the fun that we get to have all the time. Also want to talk about our ambulance service. We are currently fully staffed. Barb Scott continues to be the interim director there, and things are going well with the service. We are making some changes to the service to how we bill municipalities, but it is all about how do we make this be sustainable. We are reaching to that point in the service that if we don't increase revenue, we won't be able to sustain the service. And so that is something that we're taking a hard look at, and we'll be spending more time on next year looking at how do we sustain this service. And it's not only the day-to-day that we have to look at. We do need to replace the roof. We need a new ambulance. So it's those bigger ticket costs that we also have to work on. As Dave talked about, we are looking at some long-range facility planning. As he stated, we do need a new jail. We also need to improve courthouse security. We've done some deferred maintenance over the years, and so we do need to make a long-range plan to do that. Our Public Works Committee is taking the lead on that in the hopes of putting together a 15 to 20 year plan for us to be able to look at how do we maintain what we have, how do we get what we need to ensure that we have a safe place for our employees to work and for the people from the community to come to. That is the biggest updates that we have right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you to our panelists, and we'll get to your questions. I have one to begin with here tonight. And really, we talk about housing. Everybody has mentioned that along the way. And so the first question is the importance of housing, attracting workers, new industry, and retail. And let's send it down to Bruce if we can. Everyone that wants to participate certainly would welcome you to do so. But Bruce, you mentioned we will welcome 3 new doctors How important is housing, and how are you able to deal with that circumstance as you welcome those physicians to our community?
Sure. I think I would start again with the fundamentals of demographics that Mayor Todd mentioned. You know, our county, our service area is anticipated to have major decline in population, aging and shrinking. And having served on economic development committees over the years that I've lived here in Richland Center, it's very apparent that housing is a factor that can help stabilize our population, or at least mitigate the declines. And so housing is a reason or a pathway to stabilize population, which is the ultimate goal. A hospital is, as the saying goes, it takes a village. We have need for entry-level workers. We have need for people who have doctorate degrees, obviously, and everything in between. We have mechanics and cooks and housekeepers, as well as therapists and nurses and doctors and administrators. So we need all types of housing, and it is true that over my experience here in Richland County, from time to time there are people who say, well, I'd like to live there, but I can't find a house, I can't find housing available to me, so I'm going to take a job elsewhere. Believe me, you have a trade, you have a degree, people have job options to go elsewhere. So it is one thing that we really need to continue to work at to mitigate our demographic future, to work at housing.
Anyone else like that opportunity? Michael?
Let's go ahead and make a simple question actually to Steve on the end here. You've mentioned it to me, but I don't know to what degree housing issues affect your ability to get teachers in town. How does that look? Is that going well? Has it come up?
Every summer when we have new teachers, we are inevitably trying to help them try to find some housing, whether it's rental houses or something that they're looking. Oftentimes they end up having to travel from where they live to work in the Richland School District. But when we hire people and they're having families and raising kids, then they're raising those kids. Not only are they likely to attend the school that they live, but we're also more likely to lose that teacher to that school district when those children become school-aged. And so housing is very important for teachers. We see it every summer as we try to accommodate them and try to find something for them to live.
And just my last comment on housing. In April of this year, one of our largest employers in the city had a meeting that I attended. Bruce and Dave were actually both there, as was the city council president and a few other representatives from local industry. Seats was there, the foundry was there, a few others. And the plant manager said, we employ more than 300 people in your city. So the truth is, nobody back at headquarters would stop us if we tried to make it 700 people. But they're not here to hire. So his words. And he said, then he put a PowerPoint presentation for us as we ate our lunch, and on the screen there, it was their facility pictures and their history here and these kind of things. And then there was one that showed a demographic trend. About 20 years out, Richland County and Crawford County looked like a ski hill, just went wham. And he said 20 years out, you have this big drop off, and that's the age of the workforce here. And what he said is, we're ready to invest more here, but we need your city and your county to invest too, and show us why we should continue to invest in your community. So, that's such a veiled threat. He actually said those words, which was not a today or tomorrow thing, but as he looked out 10 to 20 years, they're literally asking themselves, will there be viable workforce here for what they do? Should they invest in that future, or should they understand that at some point they'll need to be somewhere else? And that's not my opinion or Dave's, that's what we were told, and I think the public should probably know that too.
So I wanted to address the housing issue because I was not lucky enough to be born here, but I was lucky enough to find my way here later in life. For background, I was born just outside of Philadelphia, go Birds. Grew up in Newark, Delaware, moved to Madison-ish in 2013, and moved here after graduating law school. My fiance works in Madison, generally remotely, but she needs to commute occasionally. Our office is in Westby, and at the time I did not have the privilege of serving the county, so I was commuting up there every day. We needed somewhere kind of in between. And I can tell you 100% factually, we would not be here without the Panorama Estates apartments. We were looking for housing somewhere that, you know, was somewhat feasible for that commute. We weren't finding a whole lot, and then air conditioning was a big factor, but we were able to find Panorama. And we rented there for I think 2 years, and then we saw a house come up on market and purchased it. And by that I mean my fiance was browsing Zillow at 7 a.m. and by 7:12 p.m. we had an accepted offer on the house. So just over 12 hours between us finding out the house existed and us having purchased it. And that's only because the deal that had already been set had fallen through. I know some of you know me and may have personal feelings towards me, but as a demographic representative, I am exactly who the community wants to attract. I am a young-ish, educated professional with a family. You know, my daughter learned how to swim at Simon's. We spend our time at the aquatic center over the summer. If I didn't have a ski hill for a front yard, she'd have learned to ride a bike there. You know, I don't get out much. I'm kind of a homebody, but we spend money locally. We have money to spend, and you know, I've said it before in a number of contexts. Once you get somebody out here, this place sells itself. It's just a matter of getting them, you know, into the bluffs and recognizing the beauty that is, you know, that led to this place's name. You know, it's a rich land, and so I recognize the importance of respecting what has come before, but I don't want to see this community die, and that means that we need to attract new people. And unfortunately, if you're going to attract city kids like me, or even just people who are sick of the hustle and grind of Madison or Milwaukee or those other places that pretend they're cities, then you know we need to have a place for them to settle in. Yeah, maybe they rent for a year, move on, but I promise you we are going to find more than a few residents who move here, find the same beauty, community value that I did, plural, that I did, and choose to make it their home. So housing is vital to our community, not just to sustain the services and offerings that we have that make this place all of our home, but so that we can invite new people in to share the wealth of what our home has to offer.
Thank you, Michael. Let's pass the microphone to Dave, please. Our next question from the audience, Dave, is this: based on prior forums, is the county looking to rid itself of responsibility of the former campus property?
I don't know if I'd phrase it exactly like that. What is happening right now with the campus is the county has to pay to maintain it. We're mowing a lot of grass out there. That takes somebody like a half-time position almost through the summer to just keep the grass mowed. We're paying, the last estimate we had was $10,000 to $12,000 a month in utilities for all the buildings out there. And liability insurance coverage, all this other stuff is not something the county can sustain. So are we looking to get out from under those costs? Yes, we are. But in the context of we want to see that get developed into something that's a real asset for the community. We don't just want to dump it. We want to make sure something good is going to happen there.
Okay, let's pass it to the mayor if we can for the next question. Are the Panorama apartments being built? If there's a problem, could the developer that contacted you build houses or duplexes on the Panorama site?
That's two great questions. First of all, I don't know if that builder would entertain that or not, to be honest. Also, that's a deal that was first signed between the builder and the city in 2018. I wasn't mayor yet, so I don't know how many people are up to speed on how that was done. It was done using what's called tax incremental financing. So the city had a pretty significant investment there in infrastructure. They put a turning lane in off 14, they put the street in, all the utility connections in the ground and all of that. So what the math would look like on that city investment, if you flipped it to houses or duplexes, I don't know. That would be a complex conversation. The answer to are they being built in accordance with, and yes, there's an attorney, 3 people to my left, in accordance with the developers agreement that we redid with them last December, which I would say Mr. Wendell will probably agree put the city in a stronger position than we had been in before. We did good work on it. They're going to build them, or we're going to execute what we have to do. We're going to do what we need to do with accordance to the terms in that agreement. Mr. Wendell, do you disagree with that? Yep. So do what you said. You signed it. And then when things got difficult because inflation went crazy, which is valid, it did. Building costs went nuts. We all know that. So with this attorney and their attorney, a new agreement was negotiated that they agreed to, that they signed last December, and there are 2 buildings still called for in the plan. And I talked to Dwayne last on Thursday, and he told me he'd be back in touch today. I've not heard from him today. My only comment is that we will abide by the terms of the agreement they entered into with the city, one way or another way.
And Dwayne being the builder.
Dwayne Kleinsasser is the builder. That's obviously been publicly reported many times. And I'm not going to say he hasn't put effort into it or any of that. But I will say that you can see what I can see, which is 2 buildings originally should have been done by now. One is when we redid the agreement. That new agreement called for buildings 2 and 3 to be built simultaneously. That's actually something they asked for. And that agreement said that they would break ground on building 2 no later than June 15th of this year, and anyone who lives up there can tell you they have not done that. So we are in touch, and the attorney's right there.
We'll stay with you, Mayor, for a moment. The next question, could homes be built in different open lots on Orange Street?
Well, 2 answers, more than one answer to that. It's a great question. Okay, first of all, partly up to the owners of the lots. They're privately owned, okay? Secondly, you have to find a builder that wants to build homes there. That's a little different answer, maybe, maybe not. The last thing I'll say to that is what I would like to see over that, and this is complex, but that's our most valuable commercial space to attract more business here, because don't forget Orange Street is a highway. And what businesses want when they want to come to a town, the very first thing they're looking at is what they call traffic count. They want X number of cars passed every day. It's the first part of their matrix when they're making a decision is how many people are going to come by my storefront. Then they get into what's in it for me, and they start asking the city for money. That's just a reflex, I think. TIF financing, we can talk about that if anybody wants to after we're done here. And if you think about it, so go down 14 East, which has our highest traffic count. There's not a lot of open land left down 14 East, and that it is open has not been available for sale is the best way to say it. The families that own it have not chosen to sell that land. They've been asked to, they just haven't, which is their right, they live on the land. So going that direction with our highest traffic count is a real challenge. It's been a frustration a couple of times on businesses we probably would have gotten. Because when you get east of the Do It Center, there's no city utilities out there, and Mr. Raisler just told you they want to build a hospital down that way. And when we dug into that, getting city water, sewer and electric to that facility with a turning lane and all that was estimated at $5.5 million. All right, so what do we have? We have Orange Street. What are the advantages, apart from the fact that it's a highway? It's in the middle of town, the infrastructure's there. Water, sewer, and electric in the streets. You don't have to come up with millions of dollars for that. You need the land. You can build there. So what I'd like to see most, if it can be done, look at Cross Plains that has residential over retail on the highway. I would love to see that on that east side of Orange Street, basically from the proposed hotel site to the park, as much of it as we can do over time. Because if we don't put commercial on Orange Street, I don't have a viable plan B ready for that. Because that's gonna be the second greatest traffic count after Highway 14 East. So, just as an aside here, what our terrain does to us, it brings us here and we love it, and we say, look at this beautiful place, because it is. Only in Richland Center, our very highest traffic count that everybody is looking for is past Walsh's and the Dragon Buffet. We have a cliff on the other side of the road. Man, I don't know if you knew that, but the highest traffic count every day in this city is right past Dragon Buffet and Walsh's, and then about 3,000 cars a day head down Bowman Drive. And as you keep going east, you lose some of it. Everybody thinks it's Walmart, they're closed. But it's right there, because think of it this way. If you're trying to bring a business here, I don't care what it is. If you're trying to bring it here, they're gonna say traffic count to you in the first sentence, okay? And they're gonna wanna know where it is. They're already gonna know it, because the DOT has all those traffic counts online. In fact, you can look for them yourself if you Google it. And the ones that I have memorized, there may be a more current one online now. 2018, about 6,500 cars a day went down Orange Street from Seminary to the park, as opposed to 15,000 cars a day by the Dragon Buffet. Why is that? Because about half of our local traffic every day is in fact local traffic. People running to work, running errands around town. Orange Street is not a natural way home for hardly anyone because it ends at the park. So as people come, let's say you were at Walmart or anywhere down that way and you drove home. So first you have Bowman Drive and some people go down there. Then you have Church Street, Sextonville Road, and some people go down there. Then you hit Seminary Street and some people, about 3,300 cars a day, go down there. So by the time you cross Seminary, right outside here, you're down to 6,500 cars a day. Okay, that's why getting businesses on Orange Street has taken longer. We've obviously got some really good ones, but that's why it didn't fill in as fast as people hoped, because it's half the traffic count that you have if you get down by Walmart. Okay, so what would help that? For instance, Panorama Estates dropped 92 more apartments out there west of town. What's the natural way home if you were coming back from your day job down Highway 14 East or to DeWitt Center or Walsh's? Suddenly Orange Street is the way home. And you take the left turn and you head out 14 West. Homes on the campus property would be same direction, right? Residential on Orange Street, but not houses. Let's put them above some commercial. Again, feeding the traffic count. Why do we want the hotel to be on the highway in town? More people, more traffic count, more appeal to make the next lot sell faster and get another business in town. So could you, up to the landowners, zoning and all that, probably the preferred way to get homes on Orange Street would be to put them above retail.
I know we said we'd end at 7:30, but I have just a couple more questions, and I think it'd be appropriate to be able to share those. So Mayor, if you want to keep the microphone, or even if you don't. This is a homeowner in Richland Center who says, I believe the last assessment was done 17 years ago in 2008. We're now looking at huge assessment increases for most homeowners. Why were these not done on a timely basis? Everyone is worried how high their taxes are going to be.
That's a great question. I've answered it several times, but I'll answer it as many times as it takes. Thank you, whoever asked it. I should have just brought it up myself. Okay, first of all, I was elected in 2020, and the first elected, and I said we need to do a reval in 2020, because when I first got here, there hadn't been one in 12 years. Why they didn't do one in 12 years, I can't answer that. I don't know. But when I got in here, I said we got to do it. Well, we had this little pandemic thing come up. So assessors couldn't go out in the field. So we couldn't get it done. And then I said, no, come on, we got to do this. We budgeted the money. And it sat in that budget 2 or 3 years because everybody got backlogged that needed to do it because of COVID. And then suddenly we're all trying to sign up. I know Richland Township, just a lot of our townships, same thing, just did it too, because they had to do that. I couldn't tell you why nobody addressed this from 2008 to 2020. I can tell you that we tried to do it every year from 2020 till now. Now, these assessments, this is the more important piece of this. Take it easy, we're okay here. What you probably don't know is that even though the assessed values really moved, the city is not allowed to collect even $1 more in tax revenue than last year from this. So you may get a tax increase, you may get a tax decrease. The end total that the city takes home has to be the same number. What this does is it adjusts the mill rate. Okay, so I get it. You look at your thing, you go, geez, 96%, 120%, my God, my taxes are gonna double. No, they're not. But again, if you haven't been through this, you just don't know that, and you look at that and you think, my goodness, I'm gonna get taxed on my house. No, you aren't. What this does is fixes, imagine, if you go to buy a car and you want to finance it, from work experience, the lender is going to lend you no more than 100% of the value of the car, based on your credit score, your down payment, all that, because they're thinking, if I ever own that again through a repossession or anything, I don't want to own a car that we owe too much money on and put too much money in. So they're going to do all their due diligence, run credit, and talk about down payments, all that stuff. So before this reval, if a house hadn't been touched since 17 years ago, on paper, that's what it's worth. Now go get a mortgage. And you're going, yeah, but they want what? I just pick a number. They want $262,000 for the house. It says right there it's worth $168,000. Oh, we got a problem. That's why that's an example of why you have to do that. So the state actually mandates that these get done. We knew that. We've been trying to do it since 2020, and this was when we could finally get a provider out here and get it done. Nobody's taxes are going to double on this thing. It's not going to go crazy. I don't know, nobody does yet, where exactly the mill rate will settle. We got to get the city budget done and all of that, and then that process will get completed. If you have questions, obviously, when you get your property tax bill, there will be people down at City Hall that can talk you through this. If you want to, you can contest where your taxes are like you always could, and we'll make sure the public is aware of how and when to do that as well. But that's a great question, because if you didn't know it, why wouldn't you think if your property value went up 90%, your taxes would too? But they don't.
Let's hand it to Dave if we can, and Trish. One of our attendees tonight asked, how does Medicare and Medicaid affect our ambulance service?
So in our ambulance service, about 75 to 85% of the people we serve are Medicaid or Medicare. We can only recoup what they will give us. And so if they're, I think it's like 60% of what we bill is what we get, versus if somebody has private insurance, and so that brings in less revenue for the ambulance service. And so it does impact us.
Anything you want to add, Dave? Okay. The final question that has been submitted tonight deals with the possibility of housing to be built at the campus. Maybe both Mayor and County Board Chair can address that, or Trish, if you would like to as well.
Possibility? Yeah. Anytime soon? No. The building's in the way. It's not a site that's ready to start digging on right now. That's why we've contracted with the consulting agency to help us connect with a developer who can come in and do all that stuff that needs to get done. The campus site does have city utilities, but are they robust enough to support a large residential development? We don't know that. So that's something else we got to figure out. There are lots of things that need to fall into place before that could happen. That's not to say it won't happen. And many people would like to see it happen. It would certainly be a positive, but there's a lot of stuff that has to happen before that could take place.
Okay, Dave's talking about if a large housing development went where the campus buildings currently stand, and he's right. A lot of steps to that, and so time. I don't know how feasible this is, but in 2021, what was then known as the Richland Economic Development Board had looked at putting 17 or 18 single-family houses sort of on the hillside behind the campus buildings. It's actually why Hive Drive is a city street now in case of the day ever came. And what we looked at was running a road off Hive Drive. So when you go left to go to the school, basically go right behind the trees. And some of you will know Mr. Dale Bender actually mapped out 17 or 18 single-family lots up there at the time and said, maybe, now there's some stuff here. You gotta get a road in there that's not cheap. And there'd have to be some excavation work because it's not like that land is this flat. But we had a plan for that. And I would bet you, if I called Dale or called Mike Brenninger, or maybe even Jason Glassburner, one of them still has it. If we could get to that, what's going to happen, it's county land in the city. How it gets kind of complex, because the county's got to okay that, and then city zoning and all of that. But I'm telling you, the city would talk about that and just see if it's viable, and pursue that. And that would be a wonderful opportunity, if it's viable, which we don't know yet, for the city and the county to collaborate to help this community. That's different than building where the buildings are, which is a lot more complex. But Dave, I would love to sit down and talk about that, and I don't know if you ever planned. Did you see it?
Not in detail.
Well, we can fix that. You want to do that? We'll talk. Right.
Final remarks. Is there anything that any one of our panelists would like to share that maybe you haven't had the chance to, or a concluding remark? Let's send it down to Steve and just keep passing it back this way, and if you'd like to or not.
I'm good, but thank you once again for coming and staying informed.
Yeah, thanks for coming, and just a reminder, October 25th and 26th, there's an open house at Simon's, free admission, popcorn prizes. Come and see us.
Thank you from Richland Hospital and Clinics again. You know, we belong to the community, so we're always interested in your input, how to do a better job. Thank you.
Okay, and from the city, remember this, that every April is when the elections are held to elect your city council and your mayor, and that every year 4 of the 8 council seats are up for election. There are 4 districts in the city, so no matter what neighborhood you live in, there's always one. If you would like information on how to run, let me know. If you do want to run, you pull nomination papers in December, remember that part, and you turn them in and you get on the ballot for April. And as it happens, this next year mayor is up and I'm not running again. So we'll need a new mayor, and I don't know, at least one older person has told me they won't be running again. I'll let them tell it publicly, but at least one, and it doesn't matter. Remember this. So very quickly, the decision-making body for the city is the city council. Those 8 people decide where all the money gets spent, where it doesn't get spent. If an ordinance gets passed or a resolution gets adopted, that's 8 human beings, and they are the 8 people on the city council. There's no more. The mayor only votes in case of a tie. That's the whole deal. So those seats are critically important. Millions of dollars getting spent every year. Where does it go? That's what those people get to tell you, get to choose. If you'd like to really have your voice in that by being one of those 8, that's how you do that. You run for city council and you get in there, and we're gonna need some people. So thanks for listening to all this tonight. We do these for all of you. We always get good attendance. We're not here without you, so thanks for coming out.
And as the mayor said, that's election time coming in April. All 21 county board seats are up for election this April. So we have 4 vacancies right now, as Trish said. All 21 seats are up in April. Nomination papers in December. We'd love to have you representing the people in the area you live in, bringing your voice to these decisions we have to make. We've talked a lot of difficulties tonight, but there are opportunities too. And we don't want to lose sight of that. There are ways that we can all work together, and that's a good thing about all of us sitting up here at tables together. We can talk about things. We can figure out what makes sense. We can get Simon's and the gym and the schools working together so they can utilize that space. We can accomplish some of these things if we work together. And with the challenges we're facing, we'll probably have to work together closer than we ever have before. But that's what we need to do for the citizens of the city and the county.
just want to say thank you for coming out tonight. It's great to see such a large crowd here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
So the strange dichotomy of the government attorney is that as a citizen, I believe that government should be out in the open. As an attorney, I have to maintain my client's confidentiality. However, I think there's been too many questions about what it is that I do or people not understanding it. So I have reached out to WRCO and I think they're presenting me an opportunity to appear on, I think, the morning show. It looks like tentatively the 28th. We're envisioning a question and answer similar to this. People will submit questions ahead of time. Again, I'm going to be limited in what I can say about any specific project or anything that I'm working on directly, but just like, what does your attorney do? What am I up here doing for you on your behalf? What does my day-to-day look like? If you've ever been curious or interested in that, listen out for me here soon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending tonight. A couple of important thank yous. One is to George Lobmeyer, who has provided the sound tonight. Let's give them a nice round of applause. And of course to Greg and Amy of the Phoenix Center here. Thank you for attending. Go forth informed, and we'll all work together to make this community a better place. Thank you.